feels like this was something out of a really bad movie. Republicans are sounding the alarm on a dire national security threat. Russian space nukes. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Turner released a rather cryptic statement announcing the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence has made available to all members of Congress information concerning a serious national security threat. The congressman added that he was requesting that President Biden declassify all information relating to this threat so that Congress, the administration, and our allies can openly discuss the actions necessary to respond to this threat. Later sources would reveal the threat was related to, quote, Russian space capabilities, nuclear capabilities. Per ABC News, multiple members of Congress sought to allay public concerns on the issue while still maintaining it was a serious threat. House Speaker Mike Johnson told reporters yesterday, quote, we are going to work together to address this matter as we do all sensitive matters that are classified, but we just want to assure everyone steady hands are at the wheel. Ranking members on the House Intelligence Committee, Jim Himes, released a statement calling the warning significant but not a cause for panic. The Biden administration responded to Turner's comments by saying nothing. Here's National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan at a presser yesterday.
Is there anything you can say to characterize what this threat is or what country it involves? I mean, should the public be alarmed at this point since he has said this publicly?
I'm not in a position to say anything further today. Like I said, I look forward to the discussion with him, and obviously from there we will determine how to proceed. But standing here at the podium today, I can't share anything further.
Though government officials seemed concerned by the potential use of nuclear weapons in space, reporting seemed to indicate that the weapons would not be used for attacks on terrestrial targets. Rather, they would be used to attack satellites. Russia denied the allegations it was planning to build space nukes, accusing the U.S. of looking for excuses to send more aid to Ukraine.
Yeah, and I think that's really the through line here. I was struggling to understand what on earth is going on here, but Mitch McConnell obviously knows that he's not going to, that the vote in the House is not going to go his way. You know, his top goal is to get more funding to Ukraine, and it's a goal shared by President Biden and many Democrats and many Republicans. The House is not interested in doing it. So maybe this raises the specter of some kind of James Bond-esque technology, some space weapon, laser to blow us all up. I don't know. But it sounds like we should be monitoring the situation for sure, but it's not as dire as it sounds.
Yeah, and that does seem to be the consensus. I saw several folks on the left immediately, I think Ken Klippenstein was one of them, immediately say that this is, the timing of this is suspicious. Of course, we are on the heels of this joint foreign aid bill that was once coupled with the border package. It got decoupled into a clean bill. It did pass the Senate. It looks like it's going to struggle pretty mightily with the House. And is the timing of a kind of Russia fear-mongering story likely to push some members of the House over the edge into potentially supporting an aid package that would support our proxy war against Russia? That's a big question mark. And who knows, maybe this is just a coincidental timing. But I think it is an important note that it's not that alarming when you consider that this isn't a story about Russia putting nukes in space so that they can more easily target Washington, D.C. or New York or L.A. or whatever your sort of Independence Day worst case scenario is. They are being used ostensibly to blow up satellites in space. And that in itself can present some issues because if the fragments are too large, they can fall back to Earth and cause all sorts of problems. So there have been tests apparently in 2021. This is reporting from Politico. Russia conducted an anti-satellite missile test on one of its own satellites to see how it could do that effectively. It broke up into more than 1,500 pieces of debris, and some of which are big enough to cause a serious threat if they do come back into orbit. So there is a kind of just innocuous science aspect of this, which is how do you manage what is becoming a very crowded and junky environment in the atmosphere because of the proliferation of satellites that have been left up there and abandoned. Right. And it's actually getting very crowded in space. So if this really is just an innocuous story about people trying to figure out how to clean up their garbage that's being spun into some kind of Russia hysteria in order to pass a funding bill that a bulk of Americans don't actually want, that's pretty cynical.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we don't want it to become like, the problem with some of our oceans where it's like a tragedy of the commons sort of situation and everyone, dumps their plastics into it. Although I've come to learn that most plastic in the ocean is not, everybody thinks it's those stupid plastic straws. It's like 99% of the plastic in the ocean is fishing equipment that was left behind wrongly. So yes, I think we should be very skeptical of the timing of this. I was seeing an argument advanced, and I'm probably not going to be able to do it justice here, that if we're worried about Russia learning too much about our own military capabilities, what we're doing in Ukraine is totally contrary to keeping it secret, because while we're not having we have not committed ground troops. We are arming them. They're, given that we're advising the Ukrainian military, they're learning something about what kind of arms we have and what kind of maneuvers and tactics we recommend and deploy. So we are, in fact, treating Russia to a crash course in what some kind of confrontation theoretically with the U.S. would look like. So if we, value our privacy and secrecy in terms of preparing ourselves for a conflict if it were to arise, this is not actually a great idea, what we're doing.
Yeah, I agree. And you guys should definitely stick around, because there's a lot more interesting Russian news to come up, including some interesting fallout from the Tucker-Putin interview, which continues to pay dividends.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot more about that later. I saw him. So he's getting a lot of flack, actually, from, we are going to talk about this later, but from people on the right who are accusing him of kind of doing like a Jane Fonda-esque tour of Vietnam, saying everything, all the people who hate America over here, it's all great and it's better than America. It's just kind of a funny turn for like the most, by some examinations, the most popular and influential conservative commentator.
Yeah, so I said this going in, right, that this isn't a bad idea to do, but you have to be prepared, especially because Putin is an intelligent, informed person who's from intelligence and the KGB, and who obviously has a much better grasp of his own political context than an American is going to, even the most well-versed and studied up American. And so he really had his work cut out for him. And so to have these moments during the interview, I'm not sure if we talked about them on this show, but, liberal media obviously ate up. There was this moment where Putin basically insinuated that Tucker Carlson tried to get into the CIA and wasn't good enough to be in the CIA, and kind of shaded him for like being lame enough to want to be in the CIA and getting rejected. There was a way in which Putin kind of used his superior knowledge of history to avoid questions and to kind of dance around Tucker Carlson. The language barrier, I think, was an advantage to Putin. And it was odd to see Tucker kind of on the back foot in ways that, frankly, he isn't often in American interviews.
He doesn't allow with his own interviews, yeah.
And then watching how they've spun it differently after the interview, as Tucker both has to guard off against criticisms from the mainstream media, but also seemingly from Putin himself. I think he didn't really anticipate what the posture of that conversation was going to be like, or could actually emerge as being. So we're going to turn to that and talk about that a little bit more in a bit. So do stick around. We have more Rising for you coming up next.